Okay, now we're going to talk about building the parent-child relationship. And when we were deciding how to get this material together and what to present, we were trying to think of just the right thing and how you would go about describing what that relationship should be and how to build it and what was the key element involved. And I couldn't think of it. And Gloria, being the genius that she is, decided that what we really were going to talk about tonight is intimacy and building an intimate relationship. So I brought Webster again, and I thought we would look up intimacy to help us get a grasp of what we're trying to do. So intimacy says the state of being intimate. So we looked up intimate, and it says intrinsic, essential. So intrinsic means belonging to the essential nature or constitution of a thing. So you can think of, when I think of this, as very core, very inner, very intimate. Belonging to or characterizing one's deepest nature, marked by very close association, contact, or familiarity. Marked by a warm friendship developing through long association. A very personal or private nature, of a very personal or private nature. So, I think what Webster is saying is that intimacy is something that comes from within, and it's like, if you think of it in terms of people, it's the two insides of people meeting together, like being real, like so they can see who you really are, and the other person, you can see who they really are, and that forms an intimate relationship. So to be real is essential to being intimate. Can you think of other definitions of intimacy, things that, how you would describe an intimate relationship? How would you describe an intimate relationship?
You look at me. Nothing held back.
Nothing held back?
That's good.
That's very good. Barb?
I was thinking along those same lines too. No fear, maybe.
Pam, will you write nothing held back and no fear? I like to keep looking at that.
Yeah. Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Trust.
Nothing
Yeah.
held back. So nice to have her around. Look how beautifully she prints. Back. That's fine. No fear.
And trust, Martha, aren't you the one that said trust? Or Anne? Trust.
Anything else?
Love.
Yeah, underline love. Love's a big one. Anything else? Any other intimacy? Well, I was trying. I'm sorry.
Safety.
Safety. That's real good. Safety. And
ETY.
on the board, misspell. That'd be pretty bad. Graduate student misspelled safety. So the reason I underlined love is because it's the ultimate expression of love to be intimate with another person. And thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
You're so cute. Being open, this is my definition. This is what I came up with when I was trying to think, I'm in a relationship, I'm intimate with that person, what does this mean to me? And the best way for me to figure it out was to think of what is it that I'm so afraid of, or what is it that seems uncomfortable to me. So being open and vulnerable to another human being and feeling warm and safe in that position is what intimacy is to me. It's what should be strived for. It's what should be attained. So when you're dealing with your child, what you want to do is create an atmosphere that is conducive to intimacy being built. This involves communicating love and giving respect, which we've talked about. And it also involves acceptance and giving your time to your child. It involves all the aspects of an intimate relationship. And Glory put this, and I really like this. It is the natural order of things. It's the way it should be. It's the way it was meant to be. But sometimes things get in the way. And obviously these are barriers to intimacy. And I think helping to identify what some of the key barriers to intimacy are might help us to identify a way to overcome them. So some of the key barriers are an inability to convey your love for your child, a need to over-control your child, a lack of respect and acceptance for your child, lack of realistic expectations, fear of the opinions of others. I'm not spanking my child, or I'm not keeping them in line well enough. An overall fear of intimacy. You must risk letting your child see who you really are in order to have an intimate relationship with him. This goes back to what Webster said about this intrinsic thing and this essential thing. This is the part of you that is real that has to come out. The part of you who you really are and what you really feel has to be there for your child to see in order for your child to be allowed to let his real self out as well and for y'all to develop this relationship. So the focus to creating this atmosphere is to consciously do those things that will build self-esteem in your child. Pretty easy. We've already gone over all these things. We know how to build self-esteem in our children, right? Well, at least you can think about the things that we talked about that would build self-esteem in your child. In order to do this, respect, love, and time, like I said before, and you must be real, and you must have empathy for your child. Nothing should come before your relationship with your child, not control, not what others think. If you build this relationship, discipline will be easy. Discipline was a hard thing to talk about because so many people have differing views of discipline and what should and what shouldn't be done. And it's very easy to get into the trap of wanting immediate, sit, stand, walk, smile, be happy. And not just let your child be, which is what you have to do in order to get discipline. Isn't that kind of strange? So the child needs to get the message, I matter, I am important, I am loved, I am cared about. The child needs to feel these things and be able to say these things to themselves. And the child will say that the way my parent treats me tells me these things. So it's not enough to just say it. You have to mean it, and your actions have to follow your words. So the ingredients of this atmosphere that are needed for intimacy to develop are communicating love. Again, it's not enough to love your child. You must find a way to communicate this love in a way that the child can understand and receive it. And you must not take for granted that the child knows you love them. Love needs to be imparted to your child. If your child's really upset about something, and it's something that you have a real hard rule about, or whatever it is, you could stop for a second and say, is it really that important to you? I'm sorry that you are so upset. We can work something out. And you can work something out. I mean, even if it's just that little talk you just had, even if it's just a hug or being with your child a couple more minutes. Tell your child in words, say, I want you to be happy, Your feelings are very important to me and mean it. So show this love and caring consistently. And I thought I'd tell y'all that Mother put this in about showing the love and caring consistently. And she is a woman who lives by her words. All my life we have, to a unusual degree, hugged and kissed and said I love you to each other. I mean, this is an all-day, everyday occurrence. Little things like every time she sees me, she's thrilled. She's thrilled to see me. Every morning when I wake up, she's thrilled to see me. Makes me cry. Every time I leave the house and come back, she's thrilled I'm back. She's, and it's little things she does. It's silly things, she'll be on the phone, and every time I come in, she'll cover the phone, or she'll just say, just a second, if she can cut into the conversation, just a minute, hold on. And her close friends know that if one of us walks in the door, she's going to drop down the phone, so she shouldn't even say just a minute anymore. She just puts it down and starts saying, hi, what are you doing? And they just know. So show your love by prizing and cherishing the unique individual person that your child is. If you do this, you will build a reciprocal relationship of love and caring for each other that is priceless beyond words. In a previous class, we quoted Dr. Benjamin Spock, and Gloria wanted me to read it again. Trying to do it without making too much noise on my microphone. It says, when children have been well loved by their parents, this engenders a responding love in them that makes them want to become grown-ups like their parents, and most of the time makes them want to please their parents. This is really the main leverage parents have in controlling or motivating their children. If parents don't have this reciprocal tie with their children, they are helpless. There is no way to make children do anything once they become truly defiant, as can be seen in child guidance clinics or juvenile court. Another thing that follows in this line is, in order for this atmosphere to be built, for this intimate relationship to grow, there needs to be mutual trust. And that means that not only will your child not lie to you, but you will not lie to your child. If you tell your child that something is confidential, then something is confidential, and you don't tell other people about it. There should always be a safety between the two of you and a trust that what you have is special and cherished, and this is going to allow your child to be able to open up and express himself or herself and tell you things that he wouldn't tell you if you thought he couldn't trust you with them. Another thing that you need to do for this atmosphere to develop is you need to meet his developmental needs, the ones we talked about Maslow. I don't have a list of those with me.
It's right over there on that chart.
What do they start with? Do you remember?
Well, physiological is first.
It's physiological, and then it's safety, and then it's love and belonging, and then self-esteem, and then self-actualization. So these needs have to be met in your child as well as building the relationship. You have to always keep these in mind. And giving respect, I have a big section on giving respect because this is one of the most important ways to show your love for your child, is to respect your child. At on Fondren Middle School, it's a school near our house, it says, give respect, get respect. Now, we're hoping that this is a message to teachers and parents and not to the children. We don't know. Hopefully it's a message to them that tells them to give respect to the child and you will get respect back. And the same thing is true for you and your child. According to Dr. Faison, he's a Houston psychiatrist who's deeply involved in the criminal justice system. And he says that the basic problem in our society today is a lack of respect. And he told me about this man who is a cocaine addict, and he had to rob a house a day in order to get his drugs. And he was finally caught and he was sent to prison. Well, just by chance, he was sent to a prison where they respected the inmates. This man was rehabilitated, came out, and is now like a consultant to individuals and businesses on how not to be robbed. So this man was, gone, and he got respect in a prison and came all the way back. And better, really. So if we can do this with a man who is, addicted to drugs and is sent to prison, in a prison environment, then we certainly can create a healthy and happy individual in our children, raising them in our homes, in the best of environments. So giving respect involves listening, and this is important. It's not just listening. It's just listening. That didn't make sense. Teach later is what I'm trying to say. When your child comes to talk to you and tell you something, don't start in, oh, well, I've read studies on that, and, you should never, ever take a sip of alcohol because it's going to hurt your liver in 3 years, or just whatever it is. Don't start teaching at that moment. Just listen. Teach later. Your child is your child. Your child will be your child tomorrow or later in the day. And you can talk to your child about your concerns or the things that you want to tell them later. Empathy. Try to imagine seeing things from your child's perspective. Have a non-judgmental acceptance of his feelings, so that anything he says is okay. Anything he feels is okay. There's nothing wrong with your thoughts or your feelings. It's only your actions that you can control, because thoughts will just pop into your head, as they will do. That's funny. This Dr. Faison, this psychiatrist I was talking about, talked one time about this new machine where it could connect to your brain, and up on the screen would come all of your images and thoughts. Who would want that, right? You have to have controls on that, and that's your actions, but there's nothing you can do about what pops into your head. So we're not going to be judgmental of their feelings. We're going to accept them. And be real. Let your child see who you are. It is disrespectful to try to manipulate your child's feelings about you by pretending to be something you are not. So if you're really angry, don't get a really happy face. Well, everything's fine. If you're angry, be angry. And let your child be angry. If your child is angry, let your child be angry. And express it and feel it. And use natural consequences instead of punishment. And try to avoid using anything that's humiliating. Allow your child to make choices when possible and when they're age appropriate. And use a lot of encouragement and very little criticism. All my life, yet again, the family comes into play. Encouragement in our family has always been really up there. I'm just great, I can do anything. And I remember, this is such a little insignificant thing, but it has stuck with me forever. I was probably in 4th grade, maybe 3rd grade. Little, could read, but not way up in grade school. And I had written this paper on something. And I went and I showed it to Mom and Dad, and they were looking at it and reading over it. And my dad looks at me, totally serious, says, "Did you copy this out of the encyclopedia?" No. This is great. I can't believe, he had to go look at the encyclopedia. I mean, he's a dad or whatever, but it wasn't just a complete fake me out thing. I mean, he really thought it was great. And, I don't know. I was young. I don't really know what his perception of that paper was, but I will always remember it as he thought my paper was, like, from the encyclopedia. And I had to prove to him I did not copy it word for word, and I was like, So, and I still think I can write great, so it worked. Another thing that's really important, and I have this in big headlines here, is to take time for your child. People talk about quality time, and it certainly is true that quality time is better than quantity time if your quantity time is no good. Yeah, if your quantity time is no good, if it's always miserable, and if you can just be happy with your child and really, letting them be and your being and you can be loving and accepting of them for maybe an hour a day, then just stick to that hour a day. But it's really, it's more effective if you can give your child more time. Try to give your child as much time as you possibly can. Because when I was thinking over this, the people that I am the most intimate with are the people that I spend most of my time with. And so I guess that only serves to reason that, of course, it's my mom and my sister, but I mean, we spend a lot of time together. So there's a lot of time just to be sitting around and you kind of think of something and you think, oh, and you just start talking about it. And there's not like that crammed feeling of this is our hour together. Got anything on your mind, hun? Get it out now because this is all we've got. But if it is all you have is that hour, or whatever time you choose to spend with your child, spend it doing anything. It doesn't have to be any particular activity. I mean, it can be a project. You can go for a walk together. You can go out to eat together. But make it just with you and your child, and make it your special time together. And don't have a planned agenda of we're really going to get to the root of stuff or not, or don't let there be any limits on what should or shouldn't be said, and just let everything just kind of happen and kind of come out. And I have a quote from an expert with children. It says, talking about taking time for your child, and it says, I found out the most amazing things about my children, things I would probably never have known about otherwise. Really important things about events in their lives, about their feelings, about who they were. This is from Gloria Schneider, our leading expert in child care. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to identify our barriers to intimacy, because identifying them is the best way to overcome them. So, are you ready for this? I'm going to tell you a barrier that I thought it would only be fair if I told you a barrier to intimacy that I have. And then you can try to think of some barriers to intimacy that you have, or perhaps someone you know has. And maybe somebody else in the room will have something. And because I think it's very important that we try to work through what it is that we have the barriers about so that we can get rid of them. Okay, so what mine is that I am very afraid of being hurt, I'm very afraid of being rejected, and very afraid of being unwanted. So much so that you really have to know me to get inside my world. I mean, I have this problem with everyone except for my mother and my sister. This is a pretty major problem. I have it with my brother, and I have it with my sister-in-law and my boyfriend, and what I do in order to keep from feeling all these things is I just withdraw and keep myself behind a little shield. Nobody can touch me here, Prove yourself to be worthy, and maybe I'll let you see who I am. Not real effective. Maybe the other way around would be a little bit better. So, That's my barrier. My barrier is fear of being hurt, rejected, unwanted. What is that? Abandonment? Let's say that. Fear of abandonment. Pam?
Erase this.
No, let's just put it on the other side over here. Just kind of start wherever you can on this side. Okay. Anybody you know have any barriers to intimacy? Or any of you know what your own barriers are?
Yes, I know of someone's. I'll call her Sue, but it's really me.
Right.
Is a fear of approval, or a fear of lack of approval.
Disapproval.
Thank you.
Disapproval.
I knew there was a word in the language that would cover that. Like you gave the example of
It's
people,
2 P's, I think.
people. You gave the example of people. Of someone thinking, oh my gosh, those people are going to think I don't ever discipline my child who is running through the grocery store, and they're going to think I'm the worst mother. It's a biggie for me.
Yeah. I understand that. I do. Totally.
Well, I had that. I started out having that with Mark. We can't say much about Mark tonight.
Unlike previous nights.
Right. Very much. That was very helpful. But
Building your relationship now.
Right. I wanted to prove what a wonderful parent I was. I was a teacher, and I'd worked with children a lot, and I wanted my child to show everyone how much I knew at his expense. And it was awful. But I figured it out pretty quickly. I did look at it. And when he was about 2, I realized that it was for me. Oh, it was awful. But anyway, I got over it, and I didn't ever do that with them. But, the first child, you learn all kinds of things that you wish you had known from the beginning. But that certainly was a barrier to our intimacy, for me to be trying to get him to be what I needed him to be at times. So that's my soul-searching revelation.
Your confession.
My confession.
This could be like what are those numbers on TV? 999 something. 1-900 numbers? Confessions.
1-900 confess.
Yeah. Anyway. Intimate barriers.
How about the fear of lack of enough control?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's one of our things.
That's one of the biggest fears. Is that
That
if you give
it right.
Let them see too much, then you're going to lose control. Lack of control.
Fear of lack of
Fear of
control.
Fear
Right.
of losing control.
Fear of
Fear of losing control.
Not necessarily losing it, but not having enough of it
control over the child.
over the child. Yeah. It's just fear.
Yeah, you're not afraid you're going to lose control. You're afraid you won't have. I don't mean.
Not losing control as far as getting out of control and flying off the handle, but having enough discipline-wise, that type of control.
But they're under control.
That they're under.
Right.
Fear of rebellion.
But fear of lack of control over child. That'll say it.
Yeah.
All right. Just go all the way over to fear. Anybody else? Barb, did you have one?
I was thinking,
This can be any kind of.
yeah, when you have to open yourself up like that, sometimes you can find out things about yourself that you may not have wanted to find out, your faults maybe, or
Well, that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, I've never experienced that.
Fear of exposure.
yeah, maybe
Fear
yourself
of
exposure.
Do you see a lot of fear up here?
Yes.
Oh my
It's not so
god!
fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was going to turn out this way.
Wouldn't it also be stress, other demands on your time, interfere with?
That would definitely
I would
be
think
a
so,
barrier to
yeah.
intimacy, is not to have the time.
What was that one?
Lack
Stress
of
and like-
stress and lack of time. Because sometimes if you're really stressed out, no matter how much time you have,
You're
you're
stressed
not
out.
building an intimate relationship.
Ugh.
You love it.
Let's see. Pam.
Fear of chalk noises. Anybody else? Somebody they know? I know it's hard to think in terms of this. You don't. It's not a normal topic. Everybody didn't just go, "Oh yeah." Well, it's because it's a very touchy subject. It's very difficult to be intimate with another person. It's very difficult for people to know the way you really feel, because if they know you, they can hurt you. They can hurt you bad. And we talk about this all the time. One of the hardest things about being so close to another person is that you might lose them. And, just the fear of death, people will die on you, but are you going to jeopardize the rest of your life or jeopardize that relationship because of your fears? Are you not going to have what you really want, what makes life worth living, because of your fears of abandonment or disapproval or lack of control over your child, or fear of exposure, or because you're stressed out or you don't have time? Maybe you are. Hopefully not. Gloria had some other things on here. As a barrier was not being able to communicate love in a way that the child can receive it. And a lack of respect, which would result in the over-control and the lack of realistic expectations, which is what you had with Mark. And not listening, and a lack of empathy. And then the fear of opinions of others, and a fear of being real. And I think this is one of our biggest fears in our society, in the world, and anywhere, is people have, thank you, Pam, is that people have a fear of being real. I do, and I try all the time. I mean, this is something that I work on every day of my life, and it is very difficult. I mean, I have made a lifelong goal to be real, and it's very hard. It's very hard to be the way you really are. And, what if people don't like you? Because what are you going to do then? It's you. Oh no. If they didn't like you the other way, well, you think, well, it's not really me anyway. So what? Doesn't hurt me. You don't really know me. So you don't want to do this with your child. So everything that's going to build your relationship with your child is also going to build your child's self-esteem. And obviously vice versa. Whatever builds self-esteem is going to build the relationship. This is very important. Your child's relationship with you is his model for all future relationships. So the depth of intimacy that you can give your child now is the depth of intimacy that your child will be able to attain. So when you're deciding how much time you're going to spend, and you're deciding how much effort you're going to put into your relationship and what you want out of it, think of what you want for your child in the future. And if you want your child to have a really intimate, loving relationship with a marriage partner, or with their children, or just with God, you need to be able to develop that with them. And of course, my opinion, I always have to stick this in because I'm talking. My opinion is that fulfillment in life can only be achieved through these relationships with people that are intimate. You can get a great job, you can work every day, you can make tons of money and drive a nice car, which would be nice as well, don't get me wrong. But without these relationships, without somebody who really knows who you are and really likes you anyway, it's not worth much. There's no fulfillment. There's no joy. So put that into consideration just as, oh yeah, that was her opinion of what makes life full, and mix it with your own and come up with what you want to go for. About your child's relationship with you as the model, it teaches him by example how to successfully interrelate with another human being. You know, how to communicate love. If in your household you don't communicate love, you know, if you don't say, I love you, you are so special to me, you just mean everything, I can just feel you in there, you know, then your child's not going to be used to that. If you don't hug a lot, your child's not going to know about hugging. I saw this show last night on TV. It's a true story. This is a very bizarre example. But this boy, he was about 17 actually in the show, his father beat him and his sister and his mother and had all of his life, and it was always a constant threat of death overhanging them because of this. And this is did I say it was a true story? It's a true story. Ugh. And one night the father flew off the handle again and was, you know, it was the anniversary of the mother and the father, and they were about to go out to dinner. So before he went to dinner, you know, he beat the kids and then left for dinner. And the boy just, that was it. I mean, the moment had come, and that was it. And he decided he was going to protect his mother, and he was going to protect his sister, and he was not going to let this happen anymore, because his sister just freaked out, started going into another world, so to speak. She was just really losing it, and he went and sat her down and put a gun in her lap and said, protect yourself with this. He went out to the garage, got all the guns, put all of his, you know, bullets in it, stood there in the garage door and waited for Mom and Dad to drive up from dinner, which Dad, by the way, was on his way home to beat the kids some more. And he put a whistle in his mouth and blew the whistle and shot his father until his father was dead on the driveway. And, you know, it's easy to say from the outside. I was like, all right, you know, because this guy was such a horrible guy. But, you know, it destroyed their lives, and it shows you later on, and this same boy is in another person's home. It's in his lawyer's home. And the family is kind of like relating to each other, you know. They're not hitting each other. They're not screaming. They're like talking, passing milk and stuff. And it shows him in the middle of the night, he gets up and he's going into the refrigerator, and he went to go, you know, get something out of the refrigerator, and the lawyer walked in, the man walked in, and he jumped. He was all afraid. He thought he was, you know, going to get thrown on the ground or something, I guess. And the man was like, oh, no, it's okay. We all raid the refrigerator around here. And this boy just started having this revelation that there were other alternatives to what he had done. He didn't know that there was a family that was different than his family. He said, I didn't know that there were people like you. I didn't know that there was anyone that could be trusted. I mean, he was 17. You'd think he would have known. I mean, he was in school. I mean, he was living his life. But that didn't matter. His family is what taught him what he knew. And he was caught up in the sickness that masked everything else out there. He couldn't see the truth from what he was brought up in. So I know that's a very extreme example, but the truth is that what you give to your child is what your child thinks the world is like. And that is how your child will approach the world and what your child will expect from the world. And since we're in a church, from God. What you give to your child is what your child will begin to expect from God. And if you're always judging your child, then you will see God as very judgmental, and if he doesn't do just the right thing, you won't love him and all these things. So you are setting the basis for all relationships. Gloria says that to remember that when your relationship with your child is good, discipline and enforcing limits is much easier, and a power struggle is avoided. So in conclusion here, the way to build a parent-child relationship is to overcome the barriers to intimacy. That's it. And such as A barrier might be not communicating love in a way that the child can receive the message. So this barrier can be overcome by your realization that you must consider the importance of your words and your tone of voice and your expression and your touch. I know a child who was very unhappy, wanted to die, would express, I want to die and go to heaven, to not be in trouble anymore. And the mother talked to Gloria, and they worked some stuff out. And the last time I saw this child, he came and sat on my lap. I was like, "So, how's everything going?" Oh, horrible. I was like, "What's wrong?" School's horrible. I hate school. I hate my teacher. I was like, "Oh no, that's awful." I said, "Well, how about at home? How are things at home?" "Great." "Really?" "Yeah." He said, "My mom started caring about me." And I was like, "Well, that is terrific, And I was hugging him. I was like, "Terrific." And the reason I say this story is that this mother always did care. This mother is a good mother. This mother does things with her child all the time and tries to interrelate and give her child everything. And yet somehow this child was not getting the message that he was cared about. What the mother said to the child previous to my talk with him was something to the effect of, "I am concerned about you and how you're feeling, and I love you, and we're going to work something out. I don't want you to be unhappy." What a simple thing. And then she did things and tried to do things that would make life less stressful around the house. And you just wouldn't think it would have such a big impact, but it does. It's just these little fine lines that make the atmosphere a little bit different, that open the way to intimacy. Then the need to over-control, that's another barrier. And the way you can try to overcome this is to try not to criticize or correct so much of the time. And remember that your child needs to just be a child. That's exactly what he is. He's a child, He's not going to be 40 as he's a child. Which is really kind of like what I would like for children to be. Could you just be 40 for a little while? But they can't. This is important. Ask yourself if you're trying to prove to others through your child's behavior what a great parent you are. I wonder who put that in there. Ask yourself if you're trying to make your child become what you need him to be and not tuning in to what his needs are, which might be to be a 40-year-old child. You might need him to be 40. That's why I have not had children yet, because I feel that I would need for my children to be 40. So until I lose this feeling, I will not have children. Also, I need to be married, but beyond those little details. I put this in here, and I didn't really know any really mellow way to say this. So one of the barriers to intimacy is unresolved personal problems. Do you see your child as yourself and try to fix the things in your child that you don't like about yourself? For instance, do you demand patience from your child when you have no patience for his impatience? Are the things that you're seeing in your child the very things that you don't like about yourself? And perhaps there's something that you need to resolve about yourself rather than resolving it through your children. Maybe all your life, you didn't feel like you measured up. And maybe you're identifying with your child, and so your child never quite measures up in your eyes. Something to think about. Another barrier is a lack of respect and acceptance for your child. realizing that respect for a child is the same as respect for an adult will help with this. Just like adults, children feel disrespected when they are nagged, yelled at, talked down to, criticized, humiliated. And I have a story. I did something the other day that I just couldn't believe I did. And, I study this stuff. You know what I mean? I talk all the time about it. I talk to people about it. I read about it. I mean, it's my life's goal to really be tuned in to children and all these things that I want. The other night, I was in a terrible mood, totally depressed, went in my room, shut the door, turned the lights off, and got in bed, like 7 o'clock. And I was in there, and I was all upset, and my friend came upstairs, and she's like, "Where are you?" I was like, "In here." So she comes in there, and I'm sitting there telling her this story of why I'm upset, and, it was, the whole thing was really kind of silly, but I was very upset, and we were talking, and I had my door locked and closed. And my nephew came to the door, knocks on the door. "Karen, what are you doing?" "Nothing, "Can I come in?" "No, you cannot come in. I'm having a private talk." The child started crying and left dejected, crying, miserable, went downstairs. And I was just like, what a scumbag I am. But I was still just, in this horrible mood, so I didn't do anything about it right that second. I was just like, well, fine, I'll just have to be miserable, Great attitude for a child lover, Fine. I was so miserable. So I went downstairs about 20 minutes later after talking it out with my friend and feeling much better. And I realized, from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs, oh no, I would not have done that to any other person in the world. Only a child. If Pam had come to the door, I would have let her in. If Mom had come to the door, I would have let her in. If anyone other than a child had come to the door, they would have been in my room, sitting on my bed, talking to me. I mean, it wasn't, I'm at my house, in my room. There was no deep secret about what I was talking about. I was just in a bad mood. And so I thought, ew, I've just, humiliated him, made him feel totally worthless, and he's left crying. How nice. So I just went to him, and I, as well as you can fix something like that, I just told him that I was really sorry, and that I was just in a horrible mood, and I was not myself, and that I would not ever do that to him again. If he ever came to my door, I would certainly, of course, let him in. I would never tell him, no, go away. I mean, I could have opened the door and talked to him and said, well, we're in the middle of a conversation, and I really want to finish it. So I'll come downstairs and play with you in just a couple minutes. I mean, you can have private conversation, but it's just like, no, get away from my door. So, you have to try to consider that would you do the things with your adult friend or with your marriage partner that you would do with your child? And if they're not the same, you have to try to reconsider maybe your actions with your child. Then another barrier to intimacy is a lack of realistic expectations. And Gloria thought that a way to combat this would be to understand what children are like. So I think I've suggested before that book by Gazelle and Ilg, The First 5 Years of Life. And this will help you understand their developmental tasks and ages at which they usually accomplish things. Also, join a parenting support group and you will gain amazing insight into children. We just happen to have one of those. Because TLC was designed to help parents better understand their children. I mean, that's what we're all about. So, second to last thing is the fear of the opinions of others as a barrier. And in our society, many times meanness is confused with discipline. Books advocating humiliation and shaming become bestsellers. Sometimes the traditional way of being a parent that was handed down to us through our own parents is not a respectful approach. So you have to decide what it is that you want with your child and stick with it. And choose to emulate those people that you like what they've got. You know, if other people are telling you, for instance, your own parents, if you don't have a real good relationship with your own parents and they're telling you how to raise your children, think, do I want my child to feel about me the way I feel about my mother or my father? And if you do, then that's fine, and follow the examples. And if you don't follow them. Follow somebody that you like what they've got. I won't say that. Well, yeah, well, it's like when you go into a store and this person with this horrible outfit on starts telling you what you ought to buy for your clothes. You know, you don't listen to that woman. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So, it just popped in my head. I couldn't hear. So the final barrier, one I wanted to say, was the fear of intimacy. Just the general, overall fear of intimacy. And sometimes it's frightening to let another person see us, you know, especially our children. You know, you want your children to love and adore you. But realizing that letting your child see you is what will bring you closer to him can possibly help you overcome this fear. He is not likely to let you see him if you don't let him see you. And being human and real leads to intimacy. So, that's it. Be intimate with your children. That's how you build your relationship, and that's what you're going for. We at TLC don't believe in part of the way, you know. Pick a really big goal, like total intimacy, like completely letting somebody see who you are, which of course you'd have to know who you are, which is a little frightening. But that's what makes life real, and that's what makes it worth living. And isn't it, aren't we supposed to be with our children, with our friends, and with our family the way God is with us? And doesn't he know everything about us and love us anyway? So that's the ultimate. That's what you're trying to do. You want that perfect love. So that's it. If anybody has any questions or any comments or just kind of a general, what do you mean attitude? Glad to answer them. Or if not, we can just eat some more cookies and drink coffee.
You call it unconditional love?
Yeah, it is unconditional love. I usually refrain from using that because many people use that who do not give unconditional love. The unconditional love has conditions. I will love you unconditionally if you will be the way I want you to be, but yeah, that's what it is. I guess my favorite word, I guess, is agape, which is perfect love, which is God love, which is the ultimate in understanding and truth about each other. So we're not going to go for unconditional. We're going to go for agape because we are, we're up there. We're going to strive for the best because, the best you're going to get is not quite there. There's always a higher level to reach. That's the best thing about it, though. Life is never boring. There's always something else to do, something else to learn, something else to know about that person sitting next to you. Think about how many thoughts you have in your head all day long. You could never tell somebody all those things. No, really. I mean, you look over there and think, oh yeah, that wood's brown. You could just, nobody could ever just know every single thing. So life would always be interesting. Not that anyone would care whether that wood over there was brown or that I saw it brown, but they might. They might like it that I like the way the cross is in the little box over there and the way I can't really see a shadow and it's just kind of nice over there. Oh, that was great. Anything else? Well, thank y'all very much for coming.